Hello, friends. Which country is the most powerful in the world? Which country is the biggest superpower? If you can't answer this question easily, then, which country's economy is the largest? Which country GDP is more than 20 trillion? Which country companies are the most famous? Which country films have affected the world most? Which country has won the most Nobel Prize? And which country has won the most Olympic medals? Which country has the strongest military power? The answer to all these questions is America. America and America. But the question is, how did the USA become a superpower? What did they do to become so powerful? Let's try to figure it out in today's video. Friends, this chart shows the history of the last 2,000 years, the contribution of each country to the global GDP. You'd see that before the 1800s. India and China were the two biggest superpower in the world.
Most of the trade and economic activities revolved around India and China, but after the 1900s, in the last 100 years only, the USA started gaining dominance. How did it become possible? We need to delve into history to understand it.
Year 1492, the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus discovered some Caribbean islands near North America. After this, the Europeans got to know of America, and the colonization of America started by the Europeans. During this time, Red Indians lived in America. They're also known as Native Americans. There were numerous different tribes.
South America was mostly colonized by Spain. This is the reason why, in most of the South American countries, Spanish is.
Initially, these were the three main powers: Britain, France, and Spain. The Native Americans living in America reduced by 80–90%. There are several reasons for it, but the biggest reason is the diseases.
All of these are major stories in their own rights. But let's jump to post-1850.
You'll see the chart. America graph started rising only after 1850. This was the era when the British, French, and Spanish colonizers had occupied several territories around the world. India was also a colony of the British Raj. In this circumstance, the country of the USA had already become a democratic country. So, if any new country thought about amalgamating with the USA or becoming a part of the British, French, or Spanish colonies, every country would have preferred to join the USA because they would get the same freedom and democracy that several states of the USA were starting to get. This is why the states like Florida, Illinois, and Ohio preferred to join the United States of America instead of remaining a colony under the Spanish or British government. In 1836, Texas was a state that got its freedom from Mexico, but Mexico was still tormenting them so much that they chose to join the USA. Similarly, the states, one after the other, kept on joining the USA, and the United States of America kept on growing. Every state had a reason to join the USA, but don't mistake America to have been completely harmless. It was a democratic country, sure, but Americans' intention was to expand its territory as much as possible. For this reason, in 1867, the Alaskan territory was bought by America from Russia at the price of $7.2 million. There's also the state of Hawaii. It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Today you'd think that the territory is so far from the USA. How can it be a part of the USA? Because the USA annexed it. In 1898, the USA overthrew the Kingdom of Hawaii and occupied its territory. Theoretically, the USA was not a colonizer, like British, France, and Spain, but sure behaved like them. If seen from the perspective of some places, the areas of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines were also annexed by the USA in 1898 by the US President William McKinley. The USA paid $20 million to Spain.
It wasn't that the USA had tried to take undue advantage of all the devastation. It was merely a matter of chances that the USA making profits during the world wars. When the wars started in the European countries, the Europeans felt that their currencies would lose their values and that their economy would crash. and so to protect their wealth, meaning instead of promoting Swadeshi indigenous products and nationalism, sometimes by monetarily funding the opposition, sometimes by funding terrorist rebel groups, sometimes even directly assassinating revolutionaries.
Where did these two world wars take place? In Europe, France, Germany, the UK, Spain, Italy. They were all fighting among themselves in the two world wars, and the USA was sitting on the sidelines. Even though the USA had participated in the world wars, it supplied weapons to these countries. The wars weren't on the USA's territory. Numerous American soldiers died in the world wars, but economically, the USA wasn't adversely affected. In fact, the USA was the only country to have profited from the world wars. They sold.
It was merely a matter of chances that the USA making profits during the world wars. When the wars started in the European countries, the Europeans felt that their currencies would lose their values and that their economy would crash.
In 1944, when Wheel was at its last stage, the Allied countries came together and decided to keep their currencies stable, to link their currencies to the US dollar, and the US dollar would be linked to gold, and obviously the Allied countries won Double, and the US dollar became the international currency. After this organization, like the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations, were established, wherein America played a very important role. GATT was one such endeavor, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It was founded in 194 FAS by 23 countries. These countries decided in order to boost their economy growth,
meaning instead of promoting Swadeshi indigenous products and nationalism,
international trade and globalization. After 1959, America and the Soviet Union emerged as the two main superpowers, and here began the Cold War. The war between the USA and the Soviet Union is known as the Cold War. This was an ideological war between communism and capitalism, but instead of fighting directly, they had a proxy war. Instead of fire in their own countries, they started fighting in other countries, in the countries where the USA, though that communist ideas were gaining traction.
Sometimes by monetarily funding the opposition, sometimes by funding terrorist rebel groups, sometimes even directly assassinating revolutionaries.
Where Che Guevara was executed by the operative of the CIA, in Operation Cyclone, the Taliban militants of Afghanistan were funded to stop the influence of the Soviet Union. And that's the reason terrorist groups were created here. Similar stories were seen in Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Iran, Congo, Dominican Republic. There are several other.
Because of interfering in the internal politics of so many countries, several countries become directly dependent on the USA.
There are more than 800 American military bases in more than 70 countries. To achieve all this during the Cold War, America had to spend a lot of money on its military, and that's why America's military power.
And this isn't totally good. I'll tell you why at the end of the video.
In 1948, America formed the NATO alliance with the European countries to stop the influence of the Soviet Union. This NATO alliance still exists.
Because of this, American has always been cooperative with the West European countries, and most of the European countries were heavily dependent on America for so many years. Because their own economics were destroyed, America was quite powerful. To blame the entire country of these adverse effects would be right.
In the USA, some of these presidents focuses on military power, like Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, George Bush, and Donald Trump.
On the other hand, some presidents focused on forming peaceful alliances, and they weren't too interested in the military. Because of them, the country has grown peacefully.
Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Jimmy Carter, and Barack Obama. Woodrow Wilson was the president of the US. who decided to keep America out of WWL, and he interfered in 1917 only when it was evident that the war would end with America's interference. He formed the League of Nations. It was an international body like the United Nations, established before the United Nations in an attempt to bring peace to the whole world. During the Cold War, the world map looked like this. Nearly every country had teamed up with Aid America or with the Soviet Union.
So it wasn't surprising when nearly all the countries had chosen to team up with either of the countries.
Both the countries grew much more powerful. Both the countries become superpowers. After the 1990s, when the Soviet Union was disintegrated, there remained obviously only one superpower in the world. That was America. All these reasons were geopolitical, but there were other internal reasons as well, because of which America could become such a powerful superpower.
All these reasons were geopolitical, but there were other internal reasons as well, because of which America could become such a powerful superpower. One such internal reason is, these are so many examples of this: America's policies and its culture encourages talent, innovation promotes. But even after becoming such a powerful superpower, friends,
Kalpana Chawla, Sunita Williams, Satya Nadella, how many such Indians became successful after going to America? Albert Einstein, a German, became popular after going to America. Elon Musk, a South African, came to America and became so successful. What is the ground reality of a common American? The homeownership rate in America was only 65.8% in 2020. More than 30% of Americans do not own houses.
America is one of the most unequal countries in the world.
Top 1% of the people own 42% of the country wealth. The healthcare system of America is very expensive and inadequate. The obesity levels have reached unthinkable highs in America. Many students can't afford their college tuition fees. A college education is so expensive in America that the student debts are in millions. Additionally, there are no proper gun laws in America. More than 600 mass shootings took place within a year in America in 2020. More than 3,000 people died because of it.
Instead of spending so much on the military,
Had America spent the money on the development of its citizens, being a superpower might have meant something. Today, the countries like Norway, Denmark, Sweden have surpassed America by a lot in terms of human development.
it's many be, because these countries aren't as powerful economically, their military isn't as powerful. But for a common man to live his life is better in their Nordic countries in comparison to living in America. If there is any less in this video, it will be, I hope you like this informative video. If you like it, then comment below. What other topics would you like to see video on? Let's meet in the next video. Like and share.